Welcome back to the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannafin, Cole Thompson. Thank you guys for joining us. Hey, if you're watching this live, we appreciate you tuning in. If you're on replay, do me a favor. Make sure you're subscribed. We go live every Wednesday at noon, and we don't want you to miss our upcoming episodes. If you're watching over on X, Twitter, whatever, go to the YouTube and subscribe. We certainly would enjoy interacting with you in the comments there, because we can't see the comments from Twitter because, there's always something wrong with that app. So, all right, Cole, Tom, how you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. I want to thank Cole for a text a couple days ago. I, was so excited about June 1st, so I completely forgot about its significance. Congratulations. Bill Belichick is still the head coach for UNC football. He did not opt out, so that means the Belichick-Hudson era has officially begun in Chapel Hill. Congratulations to Tar Heel fans for what should be a train wreck of a season. So excited.
I am channeling my inner Diego Pavia today, and I am not going to allow anybody to use a sledgehammer against this ant because I'm fired up to go ahead and break down everything that we got to with the whiteout game. What's going on with Brian Kelly, the House settlement? And by the way, I got a bone to pick with all of you Big Ten dweebs out there that are coming at us saying, hey, the SEC, go play a ninth scheduled conference game. I bet you don't understand the implications behind why we don't.
In the short minute and a half that Cole and Tom and I have been talking, I think another SEC team was just eliminated from the NCAA baseball tournament. Before
it just means more losses.
More losses.
I had some. You know how you put out I thought of a tweet at 1 a.m. after watching whatever the late game was that night, and I think it was LSU won, and I was like, man, should I do this now or wait till the morning? And it was a good decision to wait till the morning because we had to. Danny Cannell retweeted it. That's how you got a good troll off is when Cannell tags on, because if you say anything negative about the SEC, he's gonna be all over it. So that was.
It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. SEC,
he just shows up.
Just a line of hatred and pure disdain. Can't wait to go ahead and vent my feelings on social media.
I think 2/3 of Cannell's followers too are SEC fans that just want to get mad at his tweets. It's pretty phenomenal to see the vitriol that he gets.
Follow. Oh, it's a hate follow. We all have those. Yeah.
It's the Notre Dame of Twitter, basically. That's what it is. It's a hate follow. You hate watch.
So how about this? Some realignment news, and maybe not the most exciting, but certainly some impacts here that we'll talk through. The Pac-12, the Pac-2 now becoming the Pac, 6, 7, 8, 9-ish, right?
8 right now. They still need a 9 to become an actual conference. And, the race to the finish line is on right now in the Pacific Northwest.
We're trying our best out there, okay? I've actually seen some pretty cool projections where it was what they could do is they could have a Pac-12 West, a Pac-12 East, and then add the USF and Memphis and Tulane and stuff like that, and just kind of have an 18-team conference and go both sides. I don't, if the ACC can go to the West Coast, then I guess why can't the Pac-12 come to the East Coast? But they add Boise State and others from the Mountain West and are on their way to, here's a question. You can give your thoughts on Boise State. The others added things like that, but I'll lob this up and whoever wants to take it can. Are they going to be, they're doing all this, but they're still going to be a group of 6 conference, right? They're not going to be it's not going to be the Power 5, right?
Tom, I'll let you handle this one first.
It doesn't feel like a Power 5 conference the way it's being assembled. Now, I'll say this. I'm glad to see the Pac-12 rebuilding itself as someone who enjoyed the Pac-12 as it was for many, many years. Pac-12 after dark, this guy was staying up late for all those games. So I loved it. To see these teams added, all of these teams make sense. If you were going to attempt to add teams that were regionally in the Pac-12 now or something like that, it would make a lot of sense that you would add Boise State, et cetera. Hell, when I've played college football 25, the first thing I've done is add Boise State to the Pac-12 because I'm like, I feel like Boise State should be in a Power 4 conference, Power 5, whatever it is you want to call it. But the Pac-12 doesn't feel like a Power 5 conference anymore, and that's the challenge. So I sincerely hope that this conference gets back to where it was, but I think the additions make a lot of sense. Can they take advantage of the San Diego market with San Diego State? Part of me doesn't think like that program's really going to do anything crazy. Getting Fresno State makes a lot of sense. Fresno State consistently is putting out products into the National Football League. Boise State leading the way. Colorado State obviously being pretty well detached from Colorado. I believe they still play each other in their rivalry game. I don't know if this is going to affect any of that. You never know with conference realignment. So I think it's a step in the right direction, but it doesn't feel like a powerful conference yet. They could get there, but not right now.
So for starters, I'm very in agreement with Tom on this one. We get the Pac-12 back. And nobody's going to be complaining about this. I am a sicko that watches Mountain West football on CBS Sports Network at 1:30 in the morning, and I'm fully invested in what's going on with San Jose State versus Air Force. Like, I'm fully that dude, and I'm always going to be that dude. So the fact that we get Pac-12 After Dark, and despite it now having more of a, it's a spin-off series. Like, when Hulu comes out with all of their TV shows of King of the Hill and Futurama, it's not the same, but it still is that comfort level. Like, that's what I got in this new version of the Pac-12. And I'm cool with that as long as they're able to get that 19 to add on in. And I think there's a lot of ways they can go about it. I don't think that they are ready to claim that they are a Power 5 conference. Far from it, in my opinion. But what I will say is that they should be, until further notice, especially if they're able to land someone like a Memphis and a Tulane or a Texas State for that matter. Maybe you get UNLV to kind of punch their ticket in. They should be every single year the favorite to get the automatic qualifier for the group of 5 level. And the numbers back that up as well. This is from Pac-12's Instagram page after the announcement was made that Fresno State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Utah State, and Boise State were going to be joining. They're currently third when looking at the new teams in overall record among winning percentages in conferences. They currently are 5th out of 7th in teams ranked in the college football top 25 over the last 4 years. In the AP top 25, they would have had 6 of 7 teams ranked at least for 3 weeks or longer during the last 4-year span. On top of that, in the last 4 seasons, their Sportsbook Analytics Team Conference ranks 5th among all power conferences with an average of 68. The Sports Source Team Success ranks 5th with a 44.9 average rating. Their average FPI ranking is 5th behind the other Power 4 conferences at 74, ahead of the Sun Belt and ahead of the American. And their average SP Plus rankings is 5th in the exact same spot at a 71, ahead of the Sun Belt and the American ranking. So they have a good foundation. They do have the team that in the first ever 12-team college football playoff represented the group of 5 level. And it's very shocking that Nevada doesn't want to go ahead and join forces with UNLV so that way they can hightail it on out of the Mountain West, but they're staying loyal to that conference. I truly believe that if you were just to take the Mountain West, maybe add in a few other teams, Memphis, UTSA, Texas State, get more to that Texas vicinity, the San Antonio market, there's an opportunity for you to really kind of plant your flag as, hey, we know that we're the last team that's going to be considered, but you sure as hell are going to at least throw us in that realm of, hey, maybe we will have a second team make the jump. Maybe we could have that extra at-large bid. Because of the way that these teams have been recruiting, the way that we talk about going into this year with the Mountain West, whether it be UNLV, you throw in a Boise State, I'm very high on what we're going to see from Colorado State this year. I think Fresno State made a great hire in Matt Entz. I love Sean Lewis out of San Diego State. Bronco Mendenhall, I think, is going to get back to the Beehive State and do wonders for Utah State. There's a lot to like about what the new Pac-12 is forming. Not so much to where, yes, they get 2 automatic teams, but they certainly should be the favorite to get the group of 5 automatic qualifier every single year, no questions asked.
What's it mean for Washington State and Oregon State? Washington State been absolutely rated. Coach gone, quarterback gone the last 2 years. They're man, I'm not trying to belittle them, but they're essentially a farm system to just send out the best quarterback transfer out every year. They've been rated, and it'll take some time. Oregon State there as well. Does this give them a chance to maybe have a leg up on the teams coming in? And you talk about a team, teams getting that AQ. You got to like Boise a lot if they get to a point where they've got enough teams to potentially get an automatic qualifier. Does this help Oregon State, Washington State to maybe have a leg up on some of these teams and pick up some wins at least early in this marriage?
Well, I think the next 2 years are going to be the most critical for that, because if you have to be able to recruit, you have to feel like that Jimmy Rogers, who comes on in from the FCS level, is going to be able to build a foundation out in Pullman and retain a lot of players, and also see that development of the young guys that maybe weren't good enough to play at Alabama, but they sure as hell were good enough to play at San Jose State or San Diego State. They absolutely could be worth a Power 4 conversation, even as a depth piece, and certainly a Group of 5 starter. So if they can do those things, like the way that I've seen Trent Bray go embrace the NIL and make a move to go bring in Malik Murphy, like if he's able to establish that type of culture this year to where we absolutely are seeing the Beavers really look more so like that 8-4 Jonathan Smith-led roster that was always underrated, down but never out, then yeah, they can. But Boise, I think, is investing a lot of money. I think that Colorado State is going to now feel like that they have to be players in the NIL market. I love what Fort Collins is. I love Jay Norvell as a coach. I think at Utah State, with what the regulations are out in Utah for NIL funds, if they want to spend money on the football program, they have the resources and a coach that has proven time and time again, whether it be at Virginia and BYU, New Mexico even last year. Bronco Mendenhall is a good coach and knows how to land the right players and develop the right players. So I don't think it's at that level, but here's what I will say, and this is the biggest one of all. Last season, we didn't know what to do with Oregon State and Washington State. Washington State was a top 15 offense at times. They had two stellar wide receivers. John Mateer was so well liked. Many people thought he was the best transfer portal quarterback on the market. But we said, are they a Group of 5 school? Are they going to have to be in that at-large range? At least now they have a home. Now we can sit down and say, you're representing a conference that people are paying attention to, a conference that features eventual players that are either going to be going to major schools like the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Big 10, or players that are going to put this location on the market to where you're going to see a lot of 4 stars and a lot of 3 stars that don't want to be depth pieces in this world of NIL and in this world of instant gratification. Hey, I can live out in Boise for 2 years. I can throw up 1,000 yards rushing. I can throw up 1,000 yards as a receiver in Pullman. Corvallis seems like a good place for me to go ahead and get a couple of pick sixes. Like that's what we get out of this for Oregon State and Washington State. They stayed low to their conference, and now the conference is rewarding them by adding in teams.
I think initially in 2026, you absolutely look at Oregon State, Washington State, and Boise State as your 3 potential favorites. So that's a fun competition at the top of this new league once it gets all put together. The thing that we are going to have to mourn for those of us that are junkies and sickos and watch this is that the Mountain West Conference is going to look very, very different after this coming season. You'll have Air Force, Nevada, UNLV, New Mexico, San Jose State, and Wyoming. So all of a sudden, that's the victim in all this, what happens to the Mountain West Conference. Are we going to start to see these Group of 5, Group of 6 conferences completely dissolve altogether? And TJ, I know you talked about it, and they're like, all right, the ACC went and grabbed Cal and Stanford. It still feels sacrilegious in my mind because it's the Atlantic Coast Conference, and it's like the branding stuff drives me insane. So it's like, oh, the Pac-12 is like, well, we should grab Memphis and South Florida. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, just rebrand these, give them something. If the Pac-12 is dead, give them a name that is going to be new and fresh. Put the coat of paint on it that you want to be reflected going into the future. That's something that always bothers me.
Crap. Make the Mountain West just the Pac-12 at this point. I know they're not going, but just do it.
Yeah.
Pac Mountain. Let's go Pac Mountain. What about this? This is an absolute wild card. About 45 minutes early, but I've seen some stuff about an ACC Big 12 merger. I actually just did a video on that yesterday, and don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense for the ACC once some of their premier teams are potentially gone. But I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for the Big 12 to just get all the leftovers. I think the Big 12 would probably be smarter to, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. But for the Big 12 to just kind of pick off the teams that they think make the most sense, like a Louisville or a Pitt or Georgia Tech or NC State, Virginia Tech. Grab 4 or 5 teams that get you up to the 20-ish number and not necessarily bring on the Syracuse and Boston College and Wake Forest and stuff like that. But if 3 or 4 teams go to the Big 10, 3 or 4 teams go to the SEC, 3 or 4 teams go to the, that might be a little bit of an overshoot. So let's say 2 each go to the Big 10, SEC, and Big 12. With what you're left over with, would an ACC Pac-12 merger make sense? If you were going to go West Coast, why I don't know how much it benefits the ACC other than travel reasons for Cal and Stanford. But would a Cal, Stanford, Wake, Syracuse, Boston College, kind of very northeast vibe, coastal vibe, make sense with the Pac-12? 5-6 years away from something like this. Everybody else, all the good teams would have to be scooped up. But would that almost make more sense than adding? And if you're the ACC at that point, what are you doing when Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia, all these teams are gone? The Big 12 raids a couple. Does that make a little more sense than either of these partial conferences fighting over Memphis and Tulane?
I think it makes them way more attractive to getting good television deals, because if you're in a situation where it's like, the Big 12, we're just going to sit tight. The ACC, we're just going to sit tight. The ACC has more bargaining power because you have Clemson, you have Florida State. You can even throw North Carolina and Duke in there for the sake of basketball. Those are big bargaining chips that the Big 12 doesn't really have. So you could say the Big 12 might need the ACC in this situation. I think the Big 10 laid out the roadmap for the future of college football, and that they went and got 4 teams from the ill-fated Pac-12 in Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington. So they made themselves a national conference and not just a regional conference. I know I just got done saying, that frustrates me from a branding standpoint, but they've been able to be successful with it. The SEC seems like at least the last regional conference that you might see in college football. If the Big 12 and the ACC actually combine forces, scrap the name, come up with something completely different, and now you make yourself extremely valuable to individual television markets, that it's like, hey, say there's a super conference years from now of the SEC and the Big 10. Well, we'd like our own super conference. It's like, great, we have a nationwide super conference that is going to be able to come in second, probably won't compete really in the grand scheme of things with the SEC and the Big 10, but it's a lot more attractive.
TJ, let me ask you out of curiosity, which of the teams that would leave the ACC in 2031 when their media rights contract is currently up for debate?
I mean, I think Florida State, Clemson, UNC all go. I think Miami goes.
Okay.
I feel really confident about those 4.
You think they take Duke, right? Because of the UNC-Duke rivalry?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
that's where Texas, Oklahoma, like it's almost a package deal.
So, but what I will say is the package deal might actually have to be NC State.
Okay.
Because of the I mean, we'll see how things shake out, but because of the legislature there and controlling the state schools, Duke can kind of move freely if they want or are wanted. NC State might be a little more tied to them, so that might be who does have to go. And I don't know that a conference would. I don't know that a conference would be able to take all 3 if they were going after the Clemson's, Florida States, Miami's, teams like that. It feels like Louisville, Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech would be Big 12 desired, right? If they were trying to get up to 20, some combination of maybe 2 of those. So I think that would probably be my list. Like the teams that I don't think, again, no slight towards the teams that I don't know that are like super wanted would be like your Wake Forest. I don't, maybe SMU, if they go on a run, would be wanted by the Big 12, but I don't feel like they're in that category right now. Syracuse, BC, others, kind of in that Cal, Stanford,
Sure.
I don't know that those are super wanted.
So let's do this. Let's just say that Cal and Stanford, they go reunite with the Pac-12. Welcome back. We are not going to shame you anymore. We're going to say you're welcome here because we're a fun conference. Let's just say that Duke wants to go join the Big Ten with everybody else. There's a way to do it, but you got to kick somebody out. So how about we kick out Rutgers? Makes no sense for them to be there anyway. So we'll just throw them out and they'll just go hang out in what's going to be the new version of the ACC. Miami's going to be gone, but you know what? We could find a way to replace them with Virginia. The Big 12, maybe they care more about adding in a Stanford and adding in a Cal because it's closer to them. So they got to kick out 2 teams. Who's on the top of my head? I don't know. Maybe we'll just throw out West Virginia and Cincinnati. That would make a lot of sense. And so afterwards, now we're left with this new conference of teams that are known as Virginia Tech and Boston College, and West Virginia needs a home, and Rutgers needs a home, Pitt needs a home. Louisville is probably going to want to stay close to region. Cincinnati needs a home. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, guys. why don't we just reform the Big East in college football and create that conference again? Because that was a fun conference that was taken away from us. UConn needs a home. South Florida wants to get back into a different conference level. And therefore, full circle moment, the Big 12, you can say whatever you want. It's not like it really matters. You're only going to get one team in the college football playoff anyways most years. I digress and don't care what anybody has to say about that one. But still, maybe we can add in the Big East region. The Big East comes back to college football. I have solved the solution right here and right now. When the ACC is dissolved, just dissolve the conference in general. Get rid of those West Coast teams. Welcome back in the backyard brawl with Pitt and West Virginia. Welcome back in Cincinnati. Louisville, you were always welcome here. Congratulations. The Big East is back on your television screens this Saturday. And the Pac-12 is too. We are inching closer, boys, to college football being back in the right frame of mind. Just give me the Southwest Conference and give me the Big 8, and all things are going according to plan.
Can I send Miami up to the Big East too while we're doing it?
They got it. No, they got to go to the SEC. They're already paid out. You get Virginia instead in Wake Forest.
All right. Some good news for Penn State fans. They are getting a night whiteout game, Tom. Exciting there for your folks over on that side. Let's talk about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about that game against Oregon. But are you surprised by this? Like, is it a little bit of a shock, like in a good way?
I don't know if it was necessarily a shock. It was just the consensus among Penn State fans was finally. So this is the first whiteout game that is actually going to be against Penn State's biggest home opponent at night since 2019, which was the entire purpose of the whiteout when it came into existence in the mid-2000s. Some of those early whiteouts where it's just a student section whiteout, then turned into a full stadium whiteout, where late afternoon it turned into the evening. And as they realized what the product was there in Happy Valley, they're like, this has to be a night game. It's become a spectacle. You have heard countless sportscasters call it perhaps the best or one of the best environments in all of college athletics, in all of sports potentially. So for the longest time, because of Big Noon freaking kickoff on Fox, this game that was often the biggest home game on Penn State's schedule would get bumped to noon, and thus a whiteout in broad daylight really doesn't have the same effect. The fans were going to be in full throat. It was going to be maximum capacity. The excitement for the game was still going to be there, but the spirit of the whiteout, the purpose of the whiteout, had been lost for many years. Now you get it against the biggest home opponent on Penn State's schedule, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. Penn State hosting Oregon in September on the 27th. And on top of that, it's been pointed out, there is a chance that this is the first ever top 5 versus top 5 matchup within the whiteout game itself. So this is really, really exciting. I think Penn State versus Oregon very early on is going to be an intriguing matchup, and something I've talked about on my own podcast, State of State, a Penn State football show with Justin King, is that Oregon comes into this with a first-year starting quarterback in Dante Moore within their program. I understand people are going to point towards his experience at UCLA, highly touted recruit, sat behind Dylan Gabriel last year. He should have firepower and a nice system to work with Oregon this year. But still, I've seen transfer veteran quarterbacks walk into the whiteout, and if you're wearing white pants, you can tell they're struggling. Oh, we all remember Shea Patterson from 2019, transfer from Ole Miss to Michigan. They couldn't even snap the ball on Michigan's first offensive play of the game. So I'm very excited about this as a fan. Ultimately, Penn State fans have to thank Ohio State, because Big Noon and Fox went with 3 Ohio State games right off the bat that they won for Big Noon. Ohio State versus Texas, Ohio State versus Penn State, which is in Columbus on November 1st. And then, of course, the game, Ohio State versus Michigan. All very logical choices. And let's be honest, Fox has been adoring Ohio State and Michigan for quite some time now. So it makes sense. Ohio State is a ratings draw, more so than Penn State, unfortunately. I'd love to say that that's different, but that's the case. I'm just excited that this spectacle of college athletics is finally in the right place. And I'm a big fan of NBC now. I'm really excited. If Todd Blackledge gets to call it, I'm in heaven. I'm excited.
I was trying to look through the schedule to see who the Big Noon would be that week. Ohio State plays at Washington, so they're certainly not going to make that like a 9 a.m. kickoff.
Oh, please do. Let it be a 5 a.m. wake-up call out there.
Let Damon Williams go off, man. I'd be all right.
Listen, the college football addiction, prove our addiction. We'll go out to Seattle and do a live show there for that game.
BYU Colorado's already announced at 10:15. Again, that would be, a really early kickoff. USC Illinois could be the big noon kickoff. This is not at all what the segment is about, trying to figure out what they're going to do. That game is in Illinois.
Champaign.
That's an interesting game.
That could be it. They could also 6-day option it. So we'll see.
I won't spend too much time on this just real quickly. Just for Tom's perspective, I 100% agree. There is atmospheres and there are environments that are meant to be put on a pedestal. And the whiteout game in Happy Valley at Beaver Stadium is a one-of-one experience. If you haven't been to there, you don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been to there, and yet even as an outsider, an SEC foe in the eyes of some people in the Big Ten, I respect what the whiteout game means. That should be a standalone product, especially in a matchup against two teams that are going to be top 10, more than likely going into this game, with two great rushing attacks, with two stellar defenses, with two coaches that are trying to prove I'm the next big thing, or I'm the next big thing, and I'm the guy that can finally get over the hump and not be this 10-2 running joke in this conference to where every few years we wonder who's going to be that next breakout team, and I'm just sitting there in Tier B. This is a spectacle. This is an absolute privity. This is one of those games that when you look back, it needs to have its moment in the sun. And thankfully, Big Noon Kickoff said, let's give it to them. We're okay with not having this game be absolutely front and center stage. NBC, go have at it. Enjoy your night in Happy Valley. Make this the matchup that people are going to be gravitating to. Because if you're a good fan of college football, it doesn't matter if you're an SEC fan, an ACC fan, or a Big 12 fan. The game of the week is going to be in State College, Pennsylvania, in the Big Ten. You want to be fixated on it. Make sure that you go ahead and DVR the other games because this is the spectacle that you're going to be watching.
So, little pushback there. Georgia, Alabama is the same day. So we do have two. But here's a question. Is ESPN going to go head-to-head with that, or will they take the 3:30 slot to not go head-to-head?
I think they take the 3:30 slot.
If it's top 5 versus top 5, I don't know if I'd want to do that.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the.
They could both be top. They could both be.
That's a good point.
They could be like 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 5, or something like that. Like that could be. Whew.
I think the part of it is that last year Alabama got the game at night, and the ratings were through the roof, and that does mean something. So, knowing that what this matchup could mean for the status of the Big Ten, and the thing is with the SEC, and this is not a shot at the Big Ten, Tom, and this is not a shot at the Big Ten people that love to come in the comment section and say SEC homerism reigns supreme. In the SEC, you lose this game, your season's not entirely over. You can find a way to drop a ball and then win out against Texas and Tennessee, and then you play Florida if you're Georgia, and still go 11-1 and make it to Atlanta. And people are going to view you because of the way that you have been dominating for the last decade as still a threat. Alabama can lose this game because if it is on the road in Sanford Stadium, and it is a match bringing in a quarterback very early on in his tenure. So this is one of those games where Alabama might be able to get everything together by the time they play LSU, or when they travel to Como to face off against Missouri, or the Auburn game, or when they have to go to South Carolina, or when they welcome in Oklahoma, or when Diego Pavia comes to town. They may have all their things together, and at that point, Alabama's not out of the running. Alabama's just going to use this as revenge fuel when they get to Atlanta to go get round 2 against Kirby Smart. But for Penn State and for Oregon, once again, this feels like a 4-team race in the Big Ten, where it feels like an 8-team race or a 6-team race in the SEC. You drop a game, well, all you need is for Tennessee to beat Georgia, or for Florida to beat Texas, or for Texas to beat A&M, and there we go. Look at that. You're right back in the running. With this matchup, you may be splitting hairs. Oregon versus Penn State. Each finish 11-1, but that head-to-head carries a little bit more traction because if you lost to Penn State. So Penn State's going to Indianapolis, and you're just going to go to the college football playoff. I think that means a little bit more. See, I'm actually defending the Big Ten here on why it should be the primetime game, despite me also saying, listen, nobody's going to be talking about Rutgers and Nebraska, and maybe even I would go so far to say Michigan State this year, the way that we're talking about South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Missouri, maybe going 9-3, 10-2.
Tom, I do want to get your thoughts quickly on just really early thoughts on the game. It's pretty clear where Penn State will have some advantages, quarterback, running back. What about Oregon? This early gives you the most pause or gives you the most concern?
It's just a matter of what is Dante Moore. I think that's the big X factor looking at Oregon and Ohio State this upcoming year. You have first-year starting quarterbacks that are still young quarterbacks. I understand they're upperclassmen, but they're still young. They don't have the experience ultimately on the field. The interesting layer for this game for me is Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles went to Eugene last year and his team lost, and that was a real big point of friction for Jim Knowles within the Ohio State football program the remainder of the year leading up to the national championship. Ryan Day was all over Jim Knowles, and it kind of was part of what led to the exodus of Jim Knowles. Now you get to deal with this Oregon team again, but you have a whole new slate of weapons. How does Jim Knowles flex that defense up against Oregon? I think it will be a 50-50 ball game. Penn State, I think, showed in the Big Ten championship game last year that you can score in this Oregon defense. And a lot of that Oregon defense is gone now. A lot of those guys, especially pass rush specialists, are off to the National Football League. I think there's going to be opportunities for Penn State to run the football. And this is going to be the first of two major tests for Drew Aller to prove that he can handle the bright lights. This one, you have everything in your advantage at home, at night, in a whiteout, against Oregon, top 5 team in September, good weather, all that sort of stuff. And then later in the year, you've got to deal with Ohio State. It is, unfortunately, the narrative being true against Penn State that it's like a 2-game schedule. There will be some other challenging matchups on Penn State's schedule, but unlike the SEC, to Cole's point, Penn State's got to get past 2 real big games, and everything else they should be expected to win. So I can't wait to see that game. I think it'll be great.
2 things that I'm looking at in this game is who's going to be the eventual wide receiver 1 for Penn State. I really like all 3 additions. Trevor Pena, I think, is going to be good in the slot. Devontae Ross comes on in from Troy, over 1,000 yards last year. And I think Kyron Hudson can be a very quality number 3 option. Or maybe he's the number 1 option, but who eventually takes over that role as the go-to guy in this State College Andy Kotelnicki passing attack. On the opposing side, the thing that's underlying, and I don't think enough people are paying attention to, while Oregon went out and got 3 new offensive linemen, 2 come from the group of 5 level. Isaiah World, who was very much viewed as the number 1 offensive tackle, is coming on in from Nevada. And then you throw in Alex Harkey. He's coming on in from Texas State. And yeah, you have Emmanuel Pegron, who's coming on in from USC. But it's 3 new offensive linemen going up against a Jim Knowles defense that still features really quality players. DDS is still coming off of the edge and choosing violence. They got great depth at the linebacker position. I absolutely love AJ Harris. I think AJ Harris is one of the most slept on defensive backs in college football going into this year. We're not talking enough about how well he played last season. So how quickly can these group of 5 offensive tackles protect Dante Moore when he's trying to find an Evan Stewart, a DeCorian Moore downfield, whoever is your tight end? Because if you get pressure in State College and you're living in 3rd and long, best of luck to you. The thing that we know about secondaries underneath Jim Knowles, elite production. Oklahoma State, Ohio State would like a word.
So, call my way too early shot here, but if we really wanted to get crazy, Florida State plays Virginia on a Friday night in Charlottesville, and just 4 hours and change north of that is this Penn State Oregon game in Happy Valley. I know that we'll have to figure out schedules and a lot of things before that, but that would not be the worst. That would not be the worst kind of weekend if we decided to go on the road to take in 2 back-to-back ones. Sorry for the
twist my arm
not being part of that, but
wait, you mean that we get to go watch one of the coaches in the ACC be fired after this game and then go to a whiteout matchup? Hell yes, I'm all for it.
It truly is like eating your veggies first. And obviously I love Florida State, but it is truly eating your veggies first and watching just say it, shit show before seeing a just premier matchup in college football the night after. So
you're driving to Disney World, but you're watching an 18-wheeler accident pile up in the process. There we go. That's what we're going to see in Charlottesville that night.
Cole, we'll start with you on this one. Brian Kelly saying that they want to play Big Ten teams. I have a thought on this big picture, but want to get your immediate reaction.
I love it. I love everything about this, and I'm absolutely signing up for it. So let's start off with the fact of why the SEC doesn't play 9 conference games. Number 1, the FPI rankings just came out once again, and that is supposed to give you index when it comes to strength of schedule and all these other little tidbits. Do you know how many teams are in the top 12 from the SEC? I'll save you the trouble. Literally half. Do you know how many teams are in the top 15? I'll save you the trouble. Literally half. They play a much more rigorous schedule week in and week out to where they don't want to penalize themselves and finish 8-4 when really they're better than most Big 12 teams. They're better than most ACC teams. But they're willing to do that if the media rights contract is willing to also pay for that game. One thing that the SEC has signed up for is to be paid for 8 conference games on national television. If they're not going to get paid for it, it's like Tom and me right now. Hey, Tom, we're going to go to State College this year to every single press conference, but I'm required to go to 75% of them. And I'm only getting paid to go to 75% of them. You're getting paid to go to 95% of them. But my boss calls me up and says, Cole, you need to be at 95% because Tom is at 95%. Okay, well then pay me to be at 95%. No, you got to do it for the love of the game, to make it equal and fair and common sense. I'm not doing anything unless you're going to go ahead and add in a couple of zeros at the end of my paycheck. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. But the way that I love this one is, especially if we move to the 5-11 model or if we go to the 4-4-2-2 model. You know what this is? This is the ultimate test to see which team gets that extra bid in every single year. When you match up the SEC versus the Big Ten in a Big Ten SEC in college basketball showdown, you're going to look at the records, you're going to look at the strength of records, and you're going to look at the matchups, and you're going to take the resume all in consideration. And I'm not saying that you're going to have, Vanderbilt playing against Michigan or Ohio State playing against Kentucky. No, I wanted to be Ohio State versus Texas, Penn State versus Alabama, Michigan versus a top 15 Florida team. That's what I want because that's the most fair. Those are the teams that we're saying they belong in the race for the college football playoff. So settle it on the field when it comes to this type of matchup. It'll do great for ratings. It'll do great for revenue. And I think the biggest thing it will do, and Tom can agree with me on this one, it will finally show the other two conferences, the ACC and the Big 12. Yeah, you guys are fun. We absolutely think that you are one of the conferences that we're going to turn on our television screens and enjoy on a Saturday night. But you're not playing that version of football. You're not lining up against that level of talent. Do you want to know why we're rewarding them an extra team in the playoff every year? Because of look at what they're doing at an elite level, and you're going 55-54 with the 29th ranked schedule versus the 931st ranked schedule. So sorry, I'm all for it. Brian Kelly's 100% correct. Nip this in the butt, allow these two teams to duke it out on the field, and kind of have some bragging rights on top of having some bragging rights and rivalries.
I agree with you on all points, Cole. You're completely accurate. Here's my question. If LSU doesn't make the playoff this year, is Brian Kelly out of LSU?
No.
No?
The buyout's too big. One more year. 2026 is when I would start having that conversation.
I understand him responding to the question and play Big Ten teams, non-conferences if you want. Like the SEC schedule is murderer's row. I'll be the first person to admit that. But you're already on the hot seat. Why are you even talking about non-conference? Your focus should be oh yeah, that'd be cool. But we're focused on trying to get to the college football playoff and playing for an SEC championship. So I think there's something to be said here where Brian Kelly bites off more than he can chew far too often.
Well, the problem is that Greg Sankey also bites off more than he can chew at times because Tony Petitti sits in the background and is silent, despite being the one who was very vocal on killing a conference that we talked about earlier by bringing in 4 teams from the West Coast and then dissolving what was one of the best conferences to watch on a Saturday night. But nobody ever brings up Tony Petitti's name because of the vocal presence of Greg Sankey, and all of these SEC coaches and SEC presidents kind of reign supreme in this race. And that's what we kind of have to deal with at this time. But I don't think anything's wrong with it. If Brett Bielema said, send me out there every single Saturday to face off against that crybaby Shane Beamer, I bet everybody would be like, you know what? All for it. If Lane Kiffin says, hey, you know what? Send me against that old bastard Kirk Ferentz on Saturdays, people would go clutch their pearls and say, how dare he go disrespect the man who has built the Hawkeyes program? It's just an SEC notion. They're the devil. They're the worst thing that has ever existed. They're killing college football when both sides are equally to be blamed for the current status of college football. So why don't we allow them to go beat the crap out of each other on a football field Saturday afternoon? That way you can kind of realize, yeah, they're killing the sport because they're actually showing you why you need them more than anybody else.
I think the biggest thing here that Brian Kelly is probably alluding to, and I don't even know if he really realizes he is that we are going to get more of these matchups. And for the reasons that Cole said, being very valid, like kind of, how some of these teams perform out of conference is really going to show us a lot for those, whether they be 11 at-large spots or, 3 or 4 at-large spots if we go to the 4-4-2-2-2, 1-1-1, whatever model. I think it's also just about the money. You look at why Clemson and Notre Dame just did this. Big time matchups between Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia and Penn State and LSU and whomever, right? USC. They bring in a lot of money, and we have learned, if anything, over these last couple of years of college football, that passion and rivalries and love of the game and all this other crap, they don't really mean a lot to the people making decisions. They don't really care about any of that stuff. Now, do they like that people are engaged? Sure, because it all leads to more money. But what they care about is big matchups on TV that they can sell to sponsors and make more money. And so outside of the bragging rights and separation from the Big 12 and the ACC and fighting for playoff spots and all this other stuff, all that matters for sure. At the end of the day, it's just about money. It's just about what I would rather LSU play any of these teams that we're talking about, Penn State, than I would rather see them play Nichols, because that's a better matchup that we can put on TV and sell more ads and make more money. I do think we'll very quickly get a Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement in the next couple of years where you are having more big time matchups. I honestly, again, I think Clemson, Notre Dame were ahead of the curve with doing this. Clemson motivated by their own interests, Notre Dame as well. But I think that this is coming, and it's coming quickly. And it all kind of boils down to money, which, again, don't love from a very, macro perspective. From as a fan, yeah, we want to see big matchups. I'm fine with them having improper motivations to do it, because I do think it ultimately is good for the fans.
Also, when you're going to hear people from the Big 12 and the ACC complain that a 10-2 BYU or a 10-2 Wake Forest is being left out in favor of a 9-3 Alabama, just remind yourself that Alabama played the third toughest schedule in college football. And on top of that, they also had to face off against Ohio State and Columbus, and they lost that game. So it's a little bit of a different feel when you have that type of team going up against each other. But don't worry, they're all equal in the eyes of some people that cover the sport.
I do wonder if at some point we'll see an NFL model brought to the Big Ten and the SEC. In what I mean by that, in terms of not just a conference split into 2 divisions like we see often in college football, or the SEC being divisionless. It's like, okay, at what point do we see 3 divisions, 4 divisions, however many you want to put in there, and then it's like, hey, this season the Big Ten plays the SEC South. It's like, oh, this conference, this division, the Big Ten North plays the SEC South. Like it's going to feel like an NFL model, even more so for a million reasons very soon.
Oh, and by the way, if you want to go ahead and argue with me on this Big 12 and ACC, go schedule your own agreement against each other. Play against each other with 16 and 17 teams. And then you get to argue who gets that extra qualifying bid. Because if the SEC and the Big Ten are going to do it, you want to counteract it, schedule Jim Phillips and Brett Yormark in a room and let them kind of duke this out to have the same rivalry happen with the other conferences.
What if, that's it. What about this? What if there was a 5th AQ for the SEC and the Big Ten up for grabs every single year, and we just gave it to the team that won the SEC Big Ten Challenge?
The problem is that when you say won the Big Ten SEC Challenge,
everybody plays one team,
right?
And they're going to agree on scheduling ahead of time, right? So both teams would have to have even number of, if they were mismatched in number of conference teams, you maybe 2, If it's 18 and 16 still, right? You don't play Rutgers and whatever, Minnesota, I don't know, but you schedule them out and you play them, and whoever wins gets an extra qualifier. And let the Big Ten or the SEC select who they want to be. Oh, your team finished 17th, they're in, right? They finished 21st, and there were other teams, they're in, right? So you get an extra AQ by winning that, and then do the same thing with the ACC and the Big 12. I don't care, like that's fine if they get 2 each. If Florida State finishes 3rd and the ACC happen to win their ACC Big 12 battle, they get that extra AQ. I like it.
But what you do is you allow the SEC, if they were to beat the Big Ten, they get to pick which team that they want to represent as the out-of-match.
Sure.
Because you can't say, oh, Missouri played against Michigan, they beat Michigan, but then somehow Nebraska played against South Carolina loses to Nebraska, but South Carolina played a tougher schedule. So that's what I'm saying.
It has to be a team that won their matchup. Even if, it has to be basically the next best team that won their matchup. Yeah, if South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Florida lost their matchups, but they were the next 3 ranked teams, it's got to go to the next one. It's Missouri, right? Or whoever it would be at that point.
If they all have the same, what's it called?
Right.
Yeah, they all have the same level. That's fine.
All right, this House settlement is delay. It felt like we would get an answer on it pretty quickly, and we're less than a month away from the July 1st deadline. We can run through this quickly and then go to the wild card, so we're not too much later than 1 p.m. But is there concern? Like, they're supposed to be paying out billions of dollars here in less than 30 days, and we haven't even got an answer from the judge yet. Now, she'll rule on this, in the next 3 minutes while we're talking about it, just because that's how life works. But is there concern around this?
I don't know. Honestly, there's not enough information right now, and that's the problem with college football, is that we consistently are having these conversations about what we believe is going to happen, and we don't know what the ruling is. So maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I'm at a point of wait and see mode. What's going to be with salary cap structures? What's going to be with how much schools are able to alleviate money towards NIL funds? But also you have to get the state involved. And that's the other thing that a lot of people seem to forget, is that every state ruling is completely different, which is why the NCAA doesn't work when it comes to this, because it's based off of the state. You need to have an actual college football commissioner that can regulate every single conference and tell them, this is the allotted money that you have. This is not a state order. This is an actual college athletics order.
It's the concern I have, considering this is in the hands of the federal government. I have a feeling that this is just going to get kicked down the road. The can's going to get kicked down the road. They will punt on this entire situation. That, yes, the deadline's coming up, but how many times have we seen a government shutdown is coming? A government shutdown is coming. Oh, they extended it by a week. They extended it by 2 weeks, that sort of thing. So I have a feeling that's going to happen. And ultimately, no conference, individual program, anybody wants to pay out $1 of this $1 billion lawsuit that is going to honestly help players past and present who deserve NIL, deserve potential healthcare considerations, deserve a settlement. Like, if you're a player who actually had your jersey and your likeness used quite a bit, you deserve to get paid for that. If you're somebody who is hurting after a limited amount of time and your ceiling was in college football or college whatever sports, you deserve your money, that sort of situation. And again, I want to remind people, this goes all the way back to a freaking video game. College basketball, Ed O'Bannon, the MVP of the 95 national championship team for UCLA. This all started with him being like, hey, that's me in that video game, and I'm not getting paid for it. And it has blown up to capacities none of us could have fathomed, that random players for Texas Tech are getting private jet opportunities just to play college football. What are we even doing anymore? It's so out of control. I really do hope they come to a conclusion on this, but the second you brought the federal government into this, it's just like, best of luck. This is a disaster.
The people who, not to get so political, but just like kind of, innocuous. No one is happy with like their mail service, right? Like, everybody hates their mail lady. Everybody hates the way that the USPS works. And, the idea of like, oh, well, let's let those people run, not USPS specifically, but like, let's let the government run football and this thing that we actually care about. Like, I don't care if my mail is never delivered. But I do care about football. So let's let those people run our favorite thing in the world and expect it to go well. So granted, the NCAA did a piss poor, maybe worse than the, Postal Service does. So yeah, I mean, obviously you have to figure something out, but I'm telling you, like, the answer would have been to hire those kids at Chick-fil-A that can figure out a 6-mile long line and get it done in 20 minutes. Those would have been the people that I would have tasked with this, not necessarily the federal government, but I'm certain that's some SEC bias, though. Picking the.
They also would have said "my pleasure, sir" at the end of every single conversation.
Chick-fil-A, the unofficial desired fuel of the Power 2 on YouTube.
All right, cool. Let's run to the wild card and we will get out of here. We've done the SEC, we've done the Big Ten, we've done the ACC, and some would say saving the best for last, some would not. But we've got the Big 12 win totals. Listen, the symmetry on this is phenomenal. I'll text them to you guys. I didn't want to text them early because I didn't want you guys to be able to think about it too much before.
I've already thought about this one. This is my favorite one.
Listen, the symmetry on this is great. 3 teams with an 8.5 win total, 5 teams with a 7.5 win total, 4 teams with a 6.5 win total, and 4 teams with a 5.5 win total. No whole numbers, all halves on this, and all 16 teams separated by just 3 games. Like, this is, in the SEC, we had some 2.5s. In the ACC, we had some 3.5s. In the Big Ten, we had some really low ones. We had some 9.5s and 10.5s in other conferences. Everybody in this one separated by 3.5 games. This is the prettiest thing to look at to me. Like, it's just it's so beautiful. It's what makes the Big 12 so incredibly difficult. It's what makes it so much fun. And I can't remember who went first last week. I think
that'd be Thomas.
I think it was Tom.
Last week, yeah.
So Cole's up first. You get 1 pick.
Yeah, that's easy. I'm going to take the most proven production back in the conference. I'm going to take the most proven quarterback back in the conference. I know they lost Cam Scatterbo. I don't care. You have Jordan Tyson. You have Sam Levitt. He's playing on bath salts and sheer determination to kick the SEC's ass. The Sun Devils are going to get the 8.5 over.
Tom, you get 2.
I'll take Utah over 7.5. I am correct. Devin Dampier from New Mexico. I love his game. I got to watch him a lot. I'm 99% sure he went to
his
Utah.
OC's there too, and his number 1 receiver from New Mexico.
And the Cam Rising debacle and was Isaac Wilson. That's horrible. So I like Utah over 7.5, and I'll take Colorado over 6.5 because I like Caden Salter's game. And if he doesn't do well, Julian Lewis at least is there. I think Dion is building in the right direction. So for them to be bowl eligible this year, I don't think it's a stretch.
Liberty Flame, Caden Salter. Let's go.
Yes. I always forget about that. Yes.
So I'm really high on Baylor. Like, if anybody has talked to me on this show, I've talked about Sawyer Robertson. This is the quarterback that I think we need to be spending more time talking about. He returns in Jake Spavital's offense. I love Bryson Washington. He was the best running back, and he's the best returning running back in terms of yards. I think that you have a really good wide receiver 1 in Josh Cameron. I like the offensive line. There's a shot to where they go in, they beat Auburn, and they're just on a warpath to Arlington. I'm going to take them with the over at 7.5. And then I'm going to hit my first under. I just don't buy into anything that I'm seeing out of Cincinnati. Listen, I get, Brendan Sorby. Yes, I get that Scott Satterfield was able to find some success at Louisville, but I didn't like him at Louisville. It's probably just a hate thing here. I'm not a fan of who he is as a coach. I don't think he does a good job of working the NIL world in his favor. And I kind of want change for a program that for years was known as like that can't miss underdog mentality, but bigger with their bite. And they were able to punch out first round talent. I kind of want to hit reset out there. 6.5 is too rich for me. I'm taking the under on Cincy.
Tom, you get 2?
I am going to say, give me the under on Oklahoma State at 5.5. I believe this is the last year for Mike Gundy. I would like to see this continue to be an exciting program to watch, but they continue to fall off a cliff, and him taking a pay cut to just keep his job. Like, you could argue it, I think, in either direction for him to be motivated and trying to get this team moving in the right direction, but I just don't have a whole lot of faith. And then Texas Tech has pumped so much money into this program. I don't know. The 8.5 line, I'm really stuck on. I'm going to go under, but I think they're like an 8-14.
If they go under 8.5, I feel like that's a lot of money wasted. It worked out in softball, though. Spending money in softball did work out for Texas Tech. I know we don't talk about that on here, but Cole, what you got? I updated the list and sent it back over.
This is where it gets challenging because there's a lot of teams that I'm on that fence of. First one is UCF. I'm going to take the under at 5.5. Listen, Scott Frost did a great job his first time in Orlando. That was also a group of 5 team that tried to claim that they were a national champion. So let's just go ahead and figure out who's going to be your starting quarterback. What do you have on the offensive line? What do you have with the returning production at running back now that RJ Harvey is off to the NFL? I'm going to play the wait and see. I'm not saying it was a bad hire. I don't know enough about it. And then Yeah, there's just a part of me that loves Avery Johnson, and I still believe, and I'll die on this take until the cows come crying home. Chris Kleiman is the most underappreciated coach of the national perspective. For 5 consistent years of 8+ wins, he's won a Big 12 title, and we don't talk about him as a top 15 coach, just like a dude that lives out in Manhattan, Kansas. Show some respect to the Sunflower Shade. Show some respect to the Little Apple. I'm going to take the 8.5 on Kansas State. Avery Johnson has a breakout year, and they are going to be a threat to win the Big 12.
Tom, 2.
Give me BYU over 7.5. BYU, one of the most consistent programs in college football. Retzlaff coming back. I always like what that program is able to do. Just very, very consistent year to year. Man, West Virginia with Rich Rod. I'll go over 5.5.
I like that too. That was the one I was like looking at. Do I want to take it?
I was like on the fence a little bit. They brought Pat Smith in to the program, I think, as a offensive analyst or maybe the all-out quarterback coach. I can't remember his exact title, but Pat McAfee is going to be talking about the program every single week. You know that, so there'll be a lot of eyeballs on West Virginia this year.
Updated list sent your way, Cole. You get 2 here. Then we'll go 1-1-1 to finish.
I would take Arizona at under 5.5. I like Noah Fafita. I love Noah Fafita. I think that last year was not a good inclination on who he is as a quarterback. And I like that they brought in Chris Hudson, the wide receiver from Washington State. Know that name. He is going to be the next version of what you want at Ted McMillan. But they lost too much in the transfer portal. I think Brent Brennan's on borrowed time. I'm going to take the under on that one. And then I'm going to do it, and I'm really going to regret doing it. But I think that Willie Fritz is a program builder. I'm going to take the over at 6.5 on Houston. I like Connor Wigman coming on in. I like the wide receiver that they brought in from UAB. I like both hires of the coordinators, and Austin Armstrong and Slade Nagel. I think that they're going to be at that 7-win range this year. Like, Fritz wanted to go out on top. I think he wanted to go to a big-time program. This is that program that he wants to end his tenure off of the right note.
Tom, Iowa State, Kansas, TCU. You get 1.
I get 1. I'll take TCU under 6.5. I could see them finishing at perfectly 500 this season. I like Josh Hoover. I don't love the supporting cast. I don't like their schedule either. You open at North Carolina. We've talked about Bill Belichick and North Carolina ad nauseum. We really don't know what that's going to look like. I like Gio Lopez there. And then you get Abilene Christian, and then you're against SMU, at Arizona State versus Colorado, at Kansas State versus Baylor. Like, they might lose all of those games right in a row, and then they might win out the rest of the way at West Virginia, against Iowa State, at BYU, at Houston versus Cincinnati. Like, it's going to be a challenge.
I don't want to do this one. This one's annoying because I don't know how to feel. You know what? Screw it. I think Jalen Daniels has a bounce back year. I like Lance Leipold a lot. I think that he is a very good program builder. And the name that I think that everyone should remember, Bryson Canty. He tore up Ivy League defenses as the number 1 wide receiver the last 2 years. He gets to go on into Lawrence. I love the fact that they got rid of Jeff Grimes and they promoted Jim Zebkowski. He was really influential on getting Jason Bean to that 9-4 season. So I'll take the 7.5 and bank on them maybe being like that sleeper team that ends up doing well. And also, just remember this, boys. If you take out the fourth quarter of every single game last year for Kansas, take out every single fourth quarter, they would have been in Arlington as an 11-1 roster.
Tom, Iowa State, over under. Last year's Big 12 runner-up.
Yeah, give me the over, because the last 2 years they've been trending in the right direction under Coach Campbell. I mean, 7 wins in 2023 and 11 wins with a victory over Miami in a bowl game. 11 wins to finish the year. Feels like Iowa State's trending in the right direction.
There we have it. The Big 12. We'll certainly revisit this later on. That's our show today. TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannafin, Cole Thompson. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday. Actually, next Wednesday we'll be at a different time. I can't remember exactly when. Maybe a Tuesday night show. I think that's what we talked about. So we will keep you updated. I'll put a post out on the channel, but make sure that you are subscribed. If you watch this on X, Twitter, whatever, go over to the YouTube and hit subscribe there to College Football Addiction so you can catch the Power 2 live every week. Boys, this was fun. We'll talk to you next week.